Kyle Stahl. I'm back here with another Friday morning agronomist, standing in a field of Pioneer 0956 BMR silage, and just kind of checking out where we're at as far as silage goes this time of the year. This stuff here is actually early dent stage, but I've got a lot of silage that is showing late dough or late dent to early maturity. So we're starting to see some of that milk lines showing up, and a lot of silage is actually looking really good right now. The one weird thing around here is we've got anywhere from about 8 to 10 inches of rain in the last 2 weeks, or last week really, in this area. And you get to our further south and down by the I-43 and the state line, some of those guys have got a couple tenths in the last week or so. What we're going to be looking at when we start doing silage, up here we're not too worried about it, but when you get down around East Troy, Waterford, Burlington area, we're going to start worrying about nitrates building up in the stalks. So what we're talking about is when we start seeing drought stress corn, we start seeing nitrates build up in the lower part of the stalks. The key with that is going to be how drought stressed you really are. So if you got really full green plants, more than likely you're not going to see a lot of nitrates, but if you start seeing a lot of drought stress show up, where we're starting to see some firing on the upper leaves, or even at this level, kind of near the ears, you're going to really want to start looking at, do we have nitrate buildup? And the only really good thing or thing you can do about it is try to cut a little bit higher. So most people are cutting that 8 to 12 inch range. You really want to be in that 12 inches plus range if you're going to be doing a lot of drought stress silage. Nitrates are really bad for cattle, and we really don't want that building up in feed, so it's something to really be considering. Another thing we need to talk about is we were really dry up until last week. So even though in this area we got 8 to 10 inches of rain in the last 5 or 6 days, we're still looking at some pretty dry corn. So we're going to have some plants that are going to be fairly dry. There was a chipper day a couple days ago out in western Wisconsin, and the chippers out that way were finding anywhere from 70 to 68 to 72% dry matter in those plants. So we're really getting close to when we want to be chopping. Well, a lot of those plants, what they were looking at was about a quarter milk line. So kind of a similar situation to what we were the last couple of years, at least last year for sure. We're going to start seeing some of the silage maturing as far as plant moisture is concerned a little bit faster than what we'd like to see. So ideally we need to be chopping and taking in samples and trying to figure out where exactly we're at. Even if we see a quarter milk line or we're just at the end of dent, we really need to get a baseline of where we're at and kind of start working from there. So the other thing is, you know, we're going to be chopping pretty dang soon, so you really want to know where that is. And you know, we're going to be, if we're basing it on kernel milk line, we could actually miss that window where we want to put it into a bunker or in a bag. So we really want to be paying attention to where silage moistures are at and be chopping accordingly, and really looking at what the plants look like first too when we get out there. The other thing I wanted to kind of talk about is, and it's kind of early, but fall tillage. We're going to be thinking about that very soon. We were kind of concerned last year. We had our early fall tillage was really dry. We were getting some adequate fracture in our fall tillage, but a lot of the fall tillage last year early was just not doing a great job. It was doing a job, but it wasn't doing great. The other side of that was the later we waited, the more moisture we got, and then we weren't fracturing at all. We were just kind of smearing in the top few inches. So right now, the way it kind of looks is silage or tillage this fall could actually be really good. We've got a lot of time between now and harvest. You know, we're still probably at least a month away from soybeans coming off, and we're going to have plenty of time to get some of this stuff to drain through and dry out halfway decently. The other thing is looking at the 15-day and the next at least 2-3 week forecast. It does look pretty wet, so we're ideally going to be fairly wet early in the harvest season potentially this year. But as dry as we were and the way the temperatures are looking, which is above average, we're probably actually going to dry out halfway decently well before harvest. But you know, when we're seeing saturated or fairly muddy conditions when we're trying to do fall tillage, we're not going to get the fracture and the breaking up of that soil where we have compaction zones. So we're really not going to want to be doing it if we can at that point. So it's going to be something we're going to be talking about in a future video. Just keep an idea on silage harvest right now. The other thing we're looking at in soybeans is we're starting to see a lot of sudden deaths show up. You know, we talked about that last week. Just make sure you're kind of going out there and diagnosing if it's sudden death or brown stem rot. Brown stem rot's been pretty sparse. I haven't found much brown stem rot. I think I found one plant in the entire area I've been looking at. So it's out there, but do make sure you kind of distinguish the two. The other thing is white mold is starting to show up. It's really late for a lot of these diseases. When we look at plant maturity and where we're at as far as soybeans go, we're really into R6. I've got some fields that are pretty close to R7 already. We're going to start seeing soybean senesce probably in the next 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a field or two in the next 10 days, but I would say in the next 2 weeks we're really going to start seeing it. So we're so late in the season, a lot of these diseases aren't going to affect us too much, but it's something to kind of pay attention to, especially if you're going to be planting next season or in the next couple of years in some of those fields. To soybeans, we'll want to know where that disease pressure is at. There'll be another video we'll talk about combine clean out, just how to kind of make a harvest plan when we're starting to deal with a lot of disease like that. The other thing is we don't want to carry it on tillage equipment or anything like that as well. So stay tuned. We'll be back next week with another video.